Hello, everybody. I decided I wanted to record a video about a concept that's been kind of bothering me for a while. But before you can understand my perspective, I'll have to give a little bit of background. My daughter is a national champion wrestler and participated in boxing since she was 7 years old. She's actually not overly butch or any of those adjectives you would probably expect. When you talk to her, she actually has the personality of a Disney character. But she's also very intelligent and a very nice person. But she is what I would call a strong woman, physically and intellectually. There is a term that keeps being thrown around by feminists called toxic masculinity. And I think the problem really is more to do with just the fact that they kind of throw it at everything. It's a term that's getting overused. And that the model of male that they would prefer is, at least that they say they would prefer, is not actually, well, to put it mildly, it's not masculine at all anymore. But regardless, I also, however, feel that there is something that I would refer to as the toxic feminine. And I've encountered these personalities quite a bit throughout my life in different things that I participated in, hobbies and such. And they're just as dangerous as toxic men, and they're just as destructive, but I would say it's like a different flavor. Because women usually don't use the same means of manipulation that men do, at least not in the same way, people therefore assume that they don't, do things that are controlling. The truth is, the toxic feminine applies to a girl, often a beautiful girl, but not always, who understands that their appearance gives them a certain degree of, shall we say, privilege. They know that being pretty will get them a certain amount of power. It gives them a certain amount of influence and the ability to manipulate, particularly men. And this isn't to say that women cannot be domineering and cruel, because they certainly are with each other on a regular basis, so much so that my daughter and my mother both didn't really have a lot of female friends. But this is the type of woman that doesn't really get a lot of attention. And unfortunately, they come also in different levels of, I would say, competence. The issue that, as far as feminism is concerned, is that we now have an ideology that's telling girls that not only are they as good as men automatically in everything they do, that actually they're superior. Not all feminists say this, but an awful lot of them do. And then a good degree of them kind of say this without just spitting it out. It's in the back of their mind. That's how they feel. When you say things like mansplaining, for example, you're trying to identify that, how dare a man even debate with you? And there are men out there who do just look down at a girl and think that they don't know what they're talking about. But that doesn't actually make up the majority of the population. The funny thing that I would point out, as I mentioned in one of my recent broadcasts, was the case of Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard had the support of literally just about every Trump supporter I know, even though they're supposed to be all misogynistic, women-hating people, and that's why they didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And the truth is, Tulsi Gabbard projects herself as a woman with leadership qualities and a genuinely strong woman. The fact that she came from the background of being a major in the military has a lot to do with it, I'm sure. And if you want to experience what I'm talking about, go and watch her first Joe Rogan interview. That's when I would feel, would really get what I'm talking about. And even if you don't agree with a lot of Tulsi's policies, it doesn't matter. Because there's certain qualities about her that exude the right kind of confidence and charisma to be a leader. This is something Hillary Clinton did not have. And it's something that a lot of women wish they had, or rather would imagine that they have, but they don't. And it's not because they can't. I want to be clear. My mother's upbringing, and therefore my daughter's upbringing and my sister's upbringing, plays a pivotal role in this situation. But a large part of it has to do with, to create a strong woman, you have to put them in circumstances that make anyone, male or female, strong. If you coddle them and you give them their way all the time, just like anybody else, male or female, they're not going to become strong. If they're used to having everything handed to them, they're not going to become strong. And one of the things that I kind of came to an epiphany about, because getting my daughter to get to where she was in the sport of wrestling and the sport of boxing, I had to spend time around a lot of very real, strong women. And I noticed that virtually none of them behave anything like the women that claim that the reason that I don't agree with them about certain topics is because I don't like strong women. Or perhaps the reason that I don't like certain movies is because I don't like strong women. Now, that's horseshit. I love strong women, and I have since I was younger. In fact, I had a huge crush on Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2. I had one on Ripley from Aliens. And that's actually a perfect example of what I mean by, a strong woman who has leadership qualities that are recognized by the men around her. Aliens was made back in the 80s, and Ripley, a civilian pilot, took command of a platoon of Marines because she proved that she was the most competent person to do the job, not just because she had encountered the alien creatures before, but because she was a genuinely good leader and a strong personality who understood how to organize and motivate people. These are skills that can be learned, but there is a talent for them that can make that process easier. So, there's a moment in Game of Thrones, that's the reason why we're looking at a picture of Cersei Lannister, that I feel kind of like went off like fireworks in my head. Because it helped me understand what my problem was when I was debating certain, females who had been empowered by this ideology, and I say empowered in quotes, because they're not actually powerful. They're not necessarily strong. They've just been told to believe that they are. I'll get into that scene in a second, but there's another moment that kind of comes to my mind, and I discussed this with Villain Report, was that sometimes you see these girls in Antifa, and they get up to the front lines of their fights with the Proud Boys, and for some reason, they just think they're going to start swinging their fists at men that are 3 times their size, and they get laid out. And frequently, they get this confused look on their face, like, why didn't that go the way I thought it would? I'm the strong female. Obviously, I should have prevailed. The same thing comes with the recent reviews of the Black Widow film that said it would make make men squeam and put them in their place. And I love movies about strong women, and I actually really like Scarlett Johansson, and Black Widow was okay. But it's a hell of a lot easier to be a dominant, strong woman when CGI fight scenes are making you look invincible. See Captain Marvel. The current breed of feminist women seem to want to alter reality in such a way that they can be strong without having to put in any of the work. My daughter went on to be a starter in our wrestling team that is actually one of the best wrestling teams in the country, not just in Michigan, and set a historical precedent by doing so. She had to bust her ass to get there. And once she did, all of the men on that team respected her, including the coach. That was something she earned by demonstrating that she was, in fact, a strong woman. And the fact that she was a woman wasn't even relevant to them anymore. She demonstrated that she could do the job. So, getting to this clip, however, points at what happens when a woman is not as strong as they actually perceive themselves to be, and how dangerous they can be. Game of Thrones has an excellent complement of female characters who are strong and are capable. Like the head of the Tyrell family, for example, is a perfect opponent for Tywin Lannister, who's in this clip as well. just as shrewd, just as intelligent, just as capable, just as fearless. And Tywin Lannister is considered to be like one of the biggest badasses in modern cinema history, without being strong or physically imposing, being mentally imposing, being capable of understanding and grasping the nuances, but more importantly, being able to control their emotions when necessary to be able to get what needs to be done. There are other examples. Brienne of Tarth is a perfect example of a legitimate, genuine, strong female. She puts in the work, she becomes an amazing swordswoman, and she defeats even Jaime Lannister. She's a fantastic character, great role model for any girl who wants to become a strong woman. But when you compare them to, say, Cersei Lannister, now you have a different issue. Cersei is beautiful. She is just smart enough to get herself into trouble, would be the term that pops up into my head. And to give you a little background on this particular scene, leading up to this, she notices that another strong and capable woman, which is the woman that was betrothed to her son, was starting to get some influence over her son, which is something very difficult to do because her son is a nasty, toxic masculine asshole who doesn't normally listen to anyone. But more than that, Cersei is troubled by the fact that Margaery, the name of the character in question who would be queen, is getting the power of the people behind her. That she is clearly demonstrating that she knows how to make people like her in a genuine way. And this threatens Cersei's perspective as far as her position in the court. That's what she's really worried about. She goes on to tell her father, and I don't actually clip that out of this particular clip, but to say that they're a problem and they should be dealt with. And her father sets her straight and says those people are the reason that you're even alive, because they were powerful allies. But from the perspective of the toxic female, anybody who threatens their position in the tribe, so to speak, is a threat that needs to be eliminated, even if that decision would actually be very dangerous to her family. They don't think that far ahead, because Tywin will explain really why. But again, it comes back to not quite as capable as they believe they are. This also has to do with many other things that Cersei does throughout the course of the series, including having affairs with her brother, her cousins, just all kinds of different situations that kind of exemplify that she's actually not very strong. She can't control her impulses. She can't handle herself in any way, including doing dangerous things that could very easily destroy her family. But that's what feels good to her in the moment. And again, I want to say, men are also capable of all of this. It's just a different flavor. So now I'm going to play this clip, because I had been trying to put my finger on exactly what it was that I sensed was going on when I debate with women in these kinds of arguments. And he put it in the perfect, most simplest terms. Let's take a look.
Did it ever occur to you that I might be the one who deserves your confidence and your trust? Not your sons, not Jaime or Tyrion, but me. Years and years of lectures on family and legacy. The same lecture, really, just with tiny, tedious variations. Did it ever occur to you that your daughter might be the only one listening to them, living by them? That she might have the most to contribute to your legacy? That you love so much more than your actual children?
I don't distrust you because you're a woman. I distrust you because you're not as smart as you think you are.
Ouch. I'm sure that's not the answer she was expecting. Although it's totally true. When it comes to this person in this situation, that's really what her problem is. She thinks she's a lot smarter than she actually is. And feminism is creating this same problem in a whole generation of girls, that they don't have realistic understandings of their capabilities, which, I might add, is the limiting factor in question, not their gender. She could become considerably more formidable. She could become considerably more wise. But she already believes herself to already be there, so she's blind to the rest of the rungs of the ladder that she could climb up. One of the problems when you're discussing like knightly virtues and such, which is something that's part of one of my hobbies, the major problem with being prideful and arrogant is that you can't see that you're wrong because you only can believe that you're right. You can't even perceive the fact that you have things to work on yet, that you're not where you believe you are. And if you're blind to that truth, you can never improve because you already think you know everything. You're not as smart as you think you are. That's something that I think everybody should be able to hear. But in this particular instance, and with these particular groups of people, meaning feminists, of this generation, this is an epidemic. And it creates situations that are really causing women to unfortunately have very unfulfilling and unhappy lives. And they often don't realize it until it's too late. So now there's something else I want to show you that was actually the reason I made this video in the first place. Now, to give you a little background on this is an episode of The Dragon's Den, which is basically like Shark Tank in England. It's a reality show where a group of entrepreneurs, or rather a pair or usually a single entrepreneur, presents an idea to wealthy people to try to convince them to invest in their idea. And one of the things that Jordan Peterson points out is that when they did real research in, I believe it was Iceland, it was the country that was known to be the least sexist country on the planet, where so many laws had been passed to ensure things like the gender pay gap doesn't happen and that everybody's treated equally in all of the professions. And the really strange thing happened was that with these freedoms being presented and everything being equal, women actually still gravitated to the same professions that they were, and men still gravitated to the situations that they prefer as far as work. In fact, the gap increased. It didn't decrease. There is empirical data available to show this. And I want to be clear about something. That doesn't mean you have to do those things, because there are women who make excellent engineers. There are women who make excellent leaders. There are women who make excellent fighters. There's nothing wrong with that. But the assumption that women don't become these things because they can't is only marginally impacted by sexism. Even if you don't have sexism, there are certain elements, traits, that you have to have in order to be good at something. And that's true of men or women. Let me give you an example. Football. In football, you don't send the tiny, fast kid to the line to become an offensive or defensive lineman. You have them become the wide receiver. Not because they're male, obviously that's not what the issue is. Not because of their race, but because small and quick people make good wide receivers, but make very bad linemen. So, one of the jokes that came up, and it wasn't actually a joke. Jordan Peterson was debating somebody, and they were talking about how, women are underrepresented in certain professions. And he countered with, well, women are also underrepresented in bricklaying. Women are also underrepresented in sewage cleanup. But there's a reason for that. And it has to do with the fact that most women, not all, but a lot of women, tend to have interests, and not just interests, but talents and intuitions when it comes to dealing with people. And men, usually, not always, have talents, and abilities that are more related to things. This is not about inferior or superior. They both need to work together. And I want to be clear, I'm probably one of the least patriarchal people you'll ever meet. I was raised by a single mom, and my father was a complete useless waste when it came to my childhood. There are a lot of people in my life that, I just finally just cut him off and never talked to him again. And regardless, there are women in my life that I would follow into any situation. There are men in my life that I would never follow, ever. But anyway, so let's get into this video. What we're about to see is that these two women are about to give a presentation to the Dragon's Den. to the dragons. The dragons are wealthy people who you're trying to convince to invest in your company idea, or basically your entrepreneurial concept.
Hello, my name's Jude Camplin. This is Chrissy Shaw. We've come here today for investment in our two companies, Evolution Solutions and Evolve Through Training. The investment we're looking for is £150,000 for 20%. Evolution Solutions is a construction company which champions women in the construction industry. That means that wherever possible, we employ women tradespeople.
So I want to take a quick moment to note, have you ever noticed how many of these kinds of people seem to say they have anxiety? Like, meaning by these kinds of people, I'm referring to women who come from the current wave of feminism. She seems to have anxiety, and I don't know if she's trying to elicit a certain response from the people around her, which I do often see. Sometimes people say they have anxiety because they want people to treat them differently. Sometimes they have legitimate anxiety. Whatever it is, this person either is displaying anxiety. And you can see, and by the way, there is a legitimate strong female in this video. I'm sure you'll be able to figure out who she is shortly. It doesn't give a good look. Let's continue.
Evolution Solutions started trading in September 2005.
Nerves are getting the better of Jude. She'll have to regain her composure quickly to stand any chance of persuading the dragons to invest.
Don't worry.
We champion women in the construction industry. Housing associations have to hit diversity targets. We solve that problem for them. There are some environments men just can't go into. There's refuges, sheltered housing. We also have a lot of anecdotal evidence which also says that customers just prefer women in their homes. You know, that's probably because of the much televised pot-bellied builder rummaging through your knicker drawer that you know, gets that perception, but it's out there and it is about trust. Chris is going to talk about Evolve Through Training.
Right. There's two sides to the business. As you've heard, there's the building company. We also have an academy. Right. The academy is set out over 3 sites in Derby, and it was designed specifically to deliver good quality construction training to everyone. The academy will deliver City and Guilds accredited training through intensive courses in 5 aspects of the construction trades. I'll hand you back to Jude.
We want an academy and a construction company in every major city of the UK within 10 years. We also want to see a woman on every building site within 5 years. So thank you for your time, and please ask any questions.
Thank you.
So their business model is that they want to open up an academy for women in construction in every city, and that they want to have at least one woman on every construction site within so many years. Let's see how this plays out.
After a shaky start, Jude and Chrissy have made it through their pitch. They're asking for £150,000, but the 20% equity they're offering in return is split between 2 companies. It's an unusual deal, and Deborah Meaden needs some clarification.
I need to understand those 2 companies. How does that work?
Evolution Solutions has been trading a lot longer. Evolve Through Training is launching in August, as Chrissy said.
OK, and what's the turnover on Evolve Through Training?
We're probably looking at about 500,000 in the first year.
So there's at the moment, no turnover in either of the businesses?
No, Evolution Solutions has been trading since September 2005, and up until April we turned over only about £150,000.
And out of the 150,000, how much does that drop into profit?
I'm going to be totally honest, not a lot. This year we've made a loss.
Are you offering us 20% of each of your companies?
Yes, we're
No,
offering
no,
you
no,
20% of both of the
companies.
companies.
So that's 20% split up. So 5% Evolve Through Training, 15% Evolution Solutions.
Hey? How does that work? How does that work?
What do you mean, how does it work? 5% have evolved through
You're actually
training.
giving me 5% of one company and 15 over the other. You're not
Yeah.
giving me 20%, are you?
Well, all right, 20% is combined over both companies.
No, it doesn't work like that. One could be worth £100, right? And you give me 20% of it. That's 20 quid. Yeah?
Yeah.
Keep it simple. And the other
Thank
one
you.
could be worth...
We are women.
So, here comes the mansplaining accusation. They just admitted that one of these companies that they're asking people to invest in is failing. And they also kind of tried to obfuscate what they were really asking for, because it really only involves 15% of one company and 5% of another. So they just told this guy, he said, well, let's just keep it simple, because he's trying to break down what it is as far as to how companies work and how the math works. To which he replied, well, yeah, we are women. Just again, suggesting that he's mansplaining. This is textbook example of what they say is mansplaining. Because he's right. And they're wrong. And so the easy way out of confronting that is to just accuse him of being sexist. Let's continue.
We do, I apologise, but we face
You've
this
got a
every
terrible
day.
attitude.
I tell you, on that point, I've got a serious issue with that comment.
Well,
Do you know how many women I work with?
Yeah, yes.
Do you want to have a guess?
No, I don't know.
No,
I
no.
can imagine. I
No,
can imagine.
please have a guess.
I've no idea. I don't know who, to be perfectly honest.
You
I
don't know who we are. You've pitched up, asked for £150,000
Yeah.
for 20%, which is
Yeah.
actually 5% of one company and 15%
Yeah.
of another company.
Yeah.
You don't know who we are. You made a flippant comment about...
It's not flippant. It's very serious.
No, you made
to
a very
us.
flippant comment.
It's very serious.
Because if
to
you'd done your
us.
homework, you wouldn't have made a comment.
You notice how her anxiety attack rapidly ended the moment she was triggered? All of a sudden now, instead of being the, little Oliver saying, please, sir, can we have some more investment? She's suddenly confrontational. All starting with her calling the guy sexist. Now, all of a sudden, she's got all the quote-unquote strength in the world. What kind of strength is it? There's a difference between being boss and being bossy. There's a difference between being strong in your understanding of something or just having a strong opinion.
Jude has incensed Theo Paphitis. Deborah Meaden tries to steer the discussion back to business.
How about we start again and you talk us through your business model and how we make some money, and just want to understand the business. Can you explain to me why you think there aren't more women in the construction industry at the moment?
If you've got 20 men and 1 woman vying for a position in a building company as a trainee, whether you like it or not, men still choose to take on men. That is a fact as well.
Do you know you're beginning to sound like a crusade?
It's a
rather than
campaign.
business?
It's a campaign because it's a niche market. There's a niche in the market.
Jude's approach to the business is not impressing the Dragons. Peter Jones is ready to have his say.
Using words like campaigning, using words like I want a woman on every building site.
We do.
Well,
Because
do you,
there are women
do you
out
not
there
see
that
the
don't have that
alienation? Do you not see the
opportunity?
alienation that will ensue?
No.
Well, you've already got 5 dragons pretty hacked.
Now, one of the things she just said was that the women don't have that opportunity. There's nothing to stop women from starting on construction jobs. I'm sure that they will encounter some sexism. I'm not questioning that. But the opportunity is there. That's not what the issue is. The interest is there. It's true that less women get hired for these jobs. It's also true that less women apply for them in the first place.
Well, I'm sorry
If you
about
can do
that.
that in
I really
5
am,
minutes, what are you going to do when you go into the open market and try and sell your
We've done it, and we've
services?
succeeded. We have got the attention of housing associations
You
and
have
authorities
succeeded.
that are
You've
very
succeeded
happy.
at nothing.
That's not strictly true either.
You haven't got a business that makes any money, and you haven't even started a trading business.
She said that her success was that they were getting the attention of certain housing organizations or whatever, who were excited, of course, because in some cases, trying to be woke can help make you some money. But the problem is that she doesn't actually have the capability to run this business, and that's why it's failing, which is the reason she's asking other people to bail her out. And if they won't, it won't be because she can't demonstrate that her business model works, which she clearly can't, It's going to be because they're sexist.
Now Jude and Chrissy have been blasted by Peter Jones. With emotions running high in the den, Richard Farley steps in to find out what sets their businesses apart from rival construction and training companies.
You've got a business, the evolution is about hiring out women, is that right? Or women and men?
Men and women.
Both.
Men and women.
Yeah.
And the academy is for men and women. So
Yes.
you've got two businesses.
Yes.
The unique thing about the academy is what?
We deliver not only construction training, but the whole package. We'll address customer focus.
Okay, so nothing to do with men and women.
No.
Then you've got this construction business, which is unique in what sense?
Because we do offer women tradespeople as well as men.
Okay.
We give customers the choice.
You're saying that your construction company, there is a demand out there for people who do want women.
Yep,
Is that right?
absolutely.
It's slightly confusing because your unique selling point is that you've got a high ratio of women, but you still have men.
Yes.
If you come and pitch an idea or your concept that actually said, look, do you know what? My most critical success factor to my whole business model is the fact that I'm going to focus exclusively on women. My whole business model is going to be based around putting more women into construction industry.
Do you see the way she rolled her eyes and now is shaking her head?
In key areas where actually they add value, really good quality people that were trained through you, Chrissy. They then move over to the business once they're trained, and you then tender the contracts exclusively. You are the female side of the construction industry. I think you now start to have a really good business.
I don't know whether we can actually do that because of the Discrimination Act.
But you know, this is something you should really find out because
I think you should
Well,
research
we've
it.
stopped.
if
We
it's your
have.
unique selling point,
Yeah,
then you should really find
But
out.
what I want to say, and I'm going to complete here, is that what you've come in to try and pitch, you've pitched it in such a discriminating way. Your attitude has to change from focusing on the discrimination to focusing on the key benefit. I'm not going to invest in you, so I'm out.
Peter Jones has heard enough. He's the first dragon out. Theo Paphitis, who clashed with Jude from the start, has also made up his mind.
You came here today looking for someone to invest in you a huge amount of money. If you'd done some homework, you'd have come up here in front of the Five Dragons and made a pitch that might have just persuaded us or invested in you £150,000. I don't believe you're investable, and I won't be investing, so I'm out.
Now, I can't back you either because you haven't demonstrated that you found a clear way forward, and so I think you need to learn those lessons before someone can just give you $150,000 to play with. And the uphill climb that you've got to undertake, I'm going to drop out as well, so thank you.
With Theo Paphitis, Richard Farley and Peter Jones all out, Jude and Chrissy's chances of securing £150,000 are hanging by a thread. Has Deborah Meaden heard anything that will tempt her to back the pair?
Jude, Chrissy, I think you might be onto something if you listen to the advice. Do you know my big concern is watching you, Jude. When you get advice, there's a big sigh and there's a but. You're doing it. Exactly that. That is exactly the point.
Yeah, but I
That's
listen
it.
to everybody
The
and
thing
everything.
Is, what we are in here today to look for business opportunities. What you brought to us was a debate that you instigated over discrimination, over women in the workplace, over crusading and campaigning. That's how you started. We have helped you to bring this back onto a business platform. But every single time we try to talk about something you don't like to hear, you're very, very defensive. Anyway, you're doing it again, Jude. You're not listening to me. So I'm afraid for that reason, I'm out.
So that's what happens when the actual strong woman in the room gives her the truth. She can't handle it. She's just acting like a petulant child, and she's an adult. And unfortunately, this is the kind of adults that are coming out of this generation. And it sucks. Don't get me wrong. Again, men are capable of doing all of these things too. And with the demasculization of boys, to the point that they're not even allowed to be healthy boys, mentally, you're going to get more of this. So let's just kind of finish it out to its unfortunate conclusion.
It looks all but over for Jude and Chrissy. Only Duncan Bannatyne now stands between them and expulsion from the den.
I've just found you rude, offensive, very sexist, very discriminatory. I employ a lot of women. I employ more women than I employ men, and they do a fantastic job. Would I employ you? No. Would I invest in you? No. Never. So I'm out.
I've heard worse.
If you've heard worse,
It's just something.
if
it's
you've
just
heard
something-
worse and you keep hearing it,
Yeah, but-
and you keep going to a place and you get up, try going in without that chip on your shoulder. You're the only person who's right. We're all wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody's wrong. You've got a massive chip on your shoulder
No,
and
I
a
haven't.
terrible attitude. That's your problem.
Fine.
With the words of a furious Duncan Bannatyne ringing in their ears, Jude and Chrissy are leaving the den empty-handed. And the dragons are smouldering.
Well, that was the hardest work trying to understand a business in that model that I've ever heard. Did we discuss business?
No.
Were there actually any?
Do you know what? She hasn't got a chip on her shoulder. She's finely balanced. She's got one on each shoulder.
Yeah, well said. Well said, sir.
Jude, Chrissy, are you blaming yourselves?
Nope. They loved me, didn't they?
Were you aggressive or nervous?
How does that work?
Well, what do you mean, how does it work? That is, unfortunately, my manner. I am...
You're like that.
Yeah, I say we both say what we believe in.
What about...
How do you go from having a panic attack in the middle of your presentation to, no, I'm a strong woman, I say what I believe in? How do those two things coexist in your personality? One of them is not genuine.
About the chip on your shoulder?
No, not a chip.
don't
I
think-
get frustrated. And when you want to change something for the better, and the reason you can't is because you're a woman, you know, it does vex me.
It can't possibly have anything to do with the fact that they gave a presentation that said you'd get 20%, that really meant 15 of one and 5 of another, and then you spend your whole time rolling your eyes and acting like a kid because they're trying to tell you, meaning they, who have actually succeeded, including the woman in the room, and you, who have been failing. It doesn't evoke any kind of confidence. I would never want to work for this woman.
I've heard worse. I don't apologise for how I am. I have to be like this to survive in the industry. And
But it's because you're like this that you're not surviving in the industry. That's the point. You think you know it all already. You're not as smart as you think you are, and that's why I don't trust you. So to cap this off, I want to use this comparison because I think that these two characters in Star Wars perfectly personify what I'm talking about. The one on the left started off with a chip on her shoulder, went through a lot of trials and tribulations, bumps and bruises, made very legitimate, human mistakes, and came out on top of them to become wise and strong and powerful. The process of this is what made her strong and powerful. She had natural talents. Her personality initially gave her some trouble, but it's largely because she starts the show as a kid. She overcame those adversities and emerged out the other side a respected comrade of a lot of powerful male characters in the storyline. The character on the right, on the other hand, somehow magically was automatically better at fixing the Millennium Falcon than Han Solo, was automatically better at using the Force, not just better than Luke Skywalker, but apparently better than anybody ever, without any training, and was able to defeat a Sith Lord, of course a male villain character, without any training at all, even though he had been trained. She basically just kind of has everything handed to her. And one of these characters represents the truth of how to become a strong female. The other character is fiction, as far as that is concerned. Despite the fact they're both fictional characters, what I'm getting at is that there is a path for girls to become strong women. I raised one. My mom was one. But there is no magical reworking of reality that suddenly just gives you these things. It doesn't work like that for any gender, for any race. So at the end of the day, what really bothers me the most about this is not about women versus men. It's about the fact that there are women who are strong, and girls can be strong. They can be encouraged to explore their talents. They could be encouraged, to do the work. They can be given, the encouragement to do that. And that's important. There's no question that that's important. But it's going to look like the girl on the left, as far as the experience, not the girl on the right. And if we tell women that just by virtue of being women, say going into, the engineering field, that they're automatically going to be better, they're going to be in for a world of hurt if that's the only reason why they have confidence. Because the real world's going to come crashing down on them. It's the same thing if a woman wants to be a firefighter, if a woman wants to be a soldier. I encourage anybody to explore anything that they feel passionate about. But if you're in that situation, don't expect it to be handed to you. Because unlike when we're making woke movies to make women feel stronger or smarter than they actually are, in the real world, you're going to have to actually be able to prove it and do it. And if you do this and you emerge from the other side, you'll be a genuine, strong woman. And you won't have to worry about asking for respect. You'll get it. You'll have earned it. It'll happen on its own, organically. Thanks for listening.